Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to debug a tracelog in North52. We'll start with a sample multi-sheet decision table, doing some basic calculations, and then we will review the tracelog. First, however, there's some basic information to discuss. North52 tracing has two primary purposes: information reporting, what the formula did and why, and information logs are generated every time a North52 formula completes successfully, and then error reporting, what the formula did and what went wrong. Tracing can also be turned on local to a specific formula or globally on the North52 configuration record, and that will enable tracing on all formulas. Please be aware that local and global tracing are independent of each other, meaning that if you have local tracing turned on a formula and global tracing turned on, then you will see two instances of the tracelog. It is important to understand that the formula did not execute twice, it was simply logged twice. This is our sample decision table. Its purpose is to carry out some basic tax calculations on an employee salary. It first checks that we have a value for gross salary and taxation type. Then we determine what the taxable salary is. This is gross salary minus pre-tax deductions. These reduce the amount of salary that can be taxed, and in this case we are only accounting for pension contributions. Next, we determine what the cutoff point for the higher rate of tax is for the salary. This is based on the relationship, marriage, or civil partner status, etc. If the taxable salary is greater than the cutoff point, we apply the 20% standard rate tax to the cutoff amount. Otherwise, we apply the 20% rate to the entire taxable salary. Next, we check if the taxable salary is greater than the cutoff amount, and if yes, we apply the 40% tax rate to everything above the cutoff point. And if the taxable salary is not greater than the cutoff point, we set a zero value for the higher rate tax amount. We then add the standard tax amount and the higher tax amount together and deduct any tax allowances. And finally, we update the net salary and the total tax payment fields on the contact record. This is our test contact, Robert Stanton. He has an income of 100,000 euros, is a single person, and has 12,000 euros in pension contributions. He further has 2,500 euros in tax allowances and 7,500 euros in tax credits. When we click Save, we can see that an error has occurred. This is part of the error reporting. We download the log and open it. As we scroll through the trace log, we can see each decision sheet starting, the rows being completed, the functions on that row, and the decision sheet ending. We can clearly see the validation sheet is passed as it does not contain data for both of those tests returns false. Here we can see that the taxable salary is calculated at 88,000 euros and the cutoff rate is set to 42,000 euros. The standard rate tax amount is calculated at 8,400 euros and the higher tax amount is computed at 18,400 euros. However, here on the combined tax decision sheet, we can see something odd. The higher tax rate amount is a question mark. This is the North52 representation for a null value. This gets added to the standard rate amount, giving us a string value of question mark 8400. On the tax credit deduction sheet, the error occurs on row 4. When we review the higher tax rate decision sheet, we can see that the calculated amount is named higher rate tax due, but in the combined tax amount calculation, it is using higher rate tax amount, a different name. So we can delete this, add the correct inline calc name, and then save and publish the formula. Now when we save the record, we can see that the formula has executed successfully and calculated both the net pay and the tax payment. While this is functional now, we can make some changes to test our record. What would be the outcome if Robert's pension contribution was increased to €17,000? While this gives us an output on the record, what if I want to see exactly what the formula is doing? Since tracing is set to information on the North52 configuration record, we can simply open the formula and click on the Test and Trace button here. This opens the Test and Trace console. By default, the Test and Trace console loads with the most recent version of the tracelog included, and we can manually refresh it from the Load Trace button if you want to. This is useful when we are testing the records repeatedly and want to get the most recent tracelog. We can switch between full and basic views. The full view shows additional information outside of the formula execution. For example, plug-in execution context. Here, under Quick Links, we can navigate directly to specific sheets in a formula. This is helpful for troubleshooting specific sheets quickly. This is also broken up by formula. If there are multiple formulas executing sequentially in a synchronous transaction, then the tracelogs for each formula will include the tracelogs for the previous formulas in the execution chain. For example, formulas A, B, and C will trigger. A will go first. Formula B will have the tracelog for formula A and formula B, and formula C will have the tracelogs for formulas A, B, and C included in it. Import file allows you to import a tracelog into the Test and Trace console if you want to manually review it yourself. This is extremely useful when you have a complex trace file, for example, from an error, and you want to review what's happened. The trace level option allows you to set the global trace level either to information, which will generate a trace log each time a formula has successfully executed, information show exception details, which is useful for troubleshooting nested exceptions from further on down the execution pipeline, or to simply turn off global tracing. You can also run bulk delete jobs here that will delete all North52 trace logs in the system, or simply the trace logs that have just been generated today. This is useful when you are testing changes to your formula and want to view only the relevant trace logs in your system. Here in the full view, we can see information like the user ID that ran the formula, the message name, update, create, delete, etc., the stage the formula ran, 10 for pre-validation, 20 for pre-operation, and 40 for post-operation. You can also view the depth that the formula ran at here. Microsoft uses depth to control infinite loops. A maximum depth of 16 is permitted in online instances of Dynamics. You can see the input parameters, what actually changed to trigger the formula. In this case, you can see the change was recorded on the pension contribution, and you can see the initial formula context. Here, two formula shortcodes are listed, 6CV and 5FI. However, only 6CV is marked as true. This means that the formula will execute, while 5FI is marked as true/false, so it will not execute. This is a useful way to determine which formulas have executed and which haven't if you have complex logic with many formulas on the same entity. You can also see the entity trace for the contact record. These are values that North52 has brought into the formula from the contact record. They are needed to perform the necessary calculations. Here we have taxation type, both in primitive type, which is the option set value, and in the formatted value, which is the display name of the option set value. Line 100 confirms that only one formula will execute, and then we get into the actual execution of the formula 6CV. You can see the final formula description. This is what the decision table looks like in the classic style logic. On line 133, you see start formula execution 6CV. Everything before this point was the preamble, but from here we can see the actual formula starting to execute. We see the name of the decision sheet that is starting, we see the row number, and then the output of the functions on that row. Here we are running 2 does not contain data functions, and we can see their output is false. In North52 tracelogs, each decision sheet has a clear starting point, then all the rows will execute and the functions on them, and then a clear end point. Here on the update record decision sheet, we can see the 2 attributes being set, net salary and total tax payment. We can also see the output of the update record function. On line 221, we can see that an update was completed against the contact record and the GUID of the record that was updated. Finally, at the end of the tracelog, we can see information about the formula itself. We can see its shortcode, the source entity name, in this case, contact, and the source entity properties. These are the triggers for the formula. Thank you for watching. As always, if you have any questions, please contact support@north52.com or visit support.north52.com.